Imagine if you took a pen and paper and just started to create. Have you ever done this practice before? Just let the pen and the pencil or the ink just flow, and then sit back and think, how does it make you feel in your body? I love to create. I draw stick figures. I'm not an artist like my brother is, but when I put the pen to the paper, something comes over me. Do you feel that way? Well, here's the good news. There's actually a way to harness the extraordinary power of intentional art to rewire the brain. And you know, I love hearing those words. You're going to break old patterns. You're going to align your mind and your intentions with the energy of the universe. In other words, draw your destiny into being. Right here on Holistically Speaking, we have the perfect teacher. I absolutely adore her. I know this because I've taken her Art of Manifesting workshops. I've been in other workshops with her, and I've got to say, you are in for a treat, and you are about to have a breakthrough. Colette baron-reid, an internationally respected author, educator, spiritual intuitive, personal transformation thought leader, artist. You believe that anything is possible when you open your connection to the universe. And may I also add, I absolutely adore you and love your humor, which is why this invitation to Holistically Speaking had to happen. And let me just say thank you for saying yes. It's a good day for a good day.
Oh my God, that was amazing. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, and it was just so perfect because like I said, I don't do my DMs ever. And then I was there because when people started sending me their drawings, so I started looking, and there you were. And I looked you up, and I watched a few of your things, and I'm like, this woman rocks so well. I am saying yes. Now I don't know how to do it, so I had to tell you how to talk to my team. I'm going, yes, 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 I want to do it. Now I have to figure out how to make it happen. So here we are.
Here we are, and we made it happen, but I also think we released it into the plan of the universe, and it
Yep.
just came into being. And I think that's where we both align in so many ways. In addition to being you were just such a joy to be around and to watch and to take your workshops, to just be in your presence. You're such a beautiful teacher. And, my question to you before we even get into the book and the art of
Sure.
manifesting is how you got into this work. Because that's
Oh,
always the big question people want to know.
and it's so wild. So, I've always just I've had two experiences in life. One where I did it all wrong and chased something, and concurrently where I ended up getting everything I wanted in a different form all at the same time. Right. So, right. And so I think I would say how I got into this, I'm going to go back 40 years because I just turned 40 years clean and sober. And everything began when I got clean and sober. So prior to that, messy life, trauma beyond. I mean, like I'll give you a list another time. But suffice to say, I was very beaten up mentally, spiritually, just morally as an addict. And getting clean and sober was a miracle. And as soon as I started going into those church basements with other recovering addicts and alcoholics, I also went upstairs to the actual churches, which were Unity Church, and Unity Church introduced me to manifestation. So, and when I say church, I don't mean religion, right? So I don't. This is New Thought, Christian Science, Science of Mind, all of the New Thought movement that started, I think, in the 30s, really, which was evolved from other things prior to. But I was introduced to all these authors like Florence Scovel Shinn and Catherine Ponder and Charles Hannell, etc. So that was my first year of sobriety, and I made my first vision board. So, and at the same time, I was pursuing my music career, right? So I had all this going on. So in sobriety, I had to make a living because music wasn't paying my bills. Before I started doing readings, which was a couple of years later, which is what people knew me as, I painted on people's clothes, and I drew, these, I basically doodled all these frequency lines all over, which became this process now, what, 40 years later? Yeah, wait, 40 years later. But for a couple of years, people would bring me their leather jackets or their denim jackets, and I would shred them and make them all wild and whatever, like Beyond Thunderdome, and make these really cool things. And then I would paint. Seriously, you should have seen this stuff. It was amazing. All by hand. That's when I had eyesight, right? And I could do it at night. And then I'd find all these bras and stuff at the Salvation Army, and then I would deck them out with glitter and lace and, all kinds of stuff. So it was cool. It was art. So I always did something artistic, then music, of course, and it all comes from the same channel. The intuitive channel opens up when we give ourselves over to the flow of art in any form, right? And obviously recently, since the advent of the concept of the NeuroArts, which is an evolving concept, a multidisciplinary concept of using anything, music, dance, drawing, sculpting, paper mache, like when we're little kids, right?
Mhm.
Didn't we disappear when our hands went into
Just
finger paint? Woo!
Yeah, you're just freeing, you're free of thought. You're just
Yeah,
being.
yeah. And we
Yeah.
live in a world right now where, man, we're on hyper alert.
Mhm.
We mistake our instinct for intuition because it isn't. When you're on patrol seeking threats, potential threats all the time, that's not your intuition. That's your instinct for survival. That
Mhm.
comes from a completely different part of you. So you're not really tuned in. You think you are, but you're not. You're looking for reasons to see division, separation, all of that, because it's a way to keep yourself safe. So
Mhm.
coming full swing, like I should mention as well too. So obviously, that I'm an intuitive, and Hay
Mhm.
House, picked me up in 2005 when I was on my second album, which I eventually did have a record deal. And realizing that the music business is horrible. I hated it. It was everything I wanted. It was the worst thing I could have done. But I knew the word. I was like, I have to go there. I have to go there, right? And I did. So and then of course, this career as an intuitive, then as a medium, as an oracle creator. I have 8 books, and during the pandemic, I had a repeat of the anxiety I used to have when I was young.
Mm.
So growing up, I had a lot of severe anxiety. I had an eating disorder before I got into drugs and alcohol. I was very messed up, not understanding where I ended and other people began. The empathy overload was outrageous. And I started getting overwhelmed in the pandemic because I was doing, calls every day, and, for the big, I have a big audience, right? So
Yeah.
anyhow, and I started to really erode, that sense of being able to be grounded. So I picked up a paintbrush. I hadn't painted in years, and I started painting, and I ended up channeling this art that became my oracle card deck, Guides of the Hidden Realms. And once all of those beings came and left, I was like, now what? And I broke my foot, so I couldn't stand in front of a canvas, and I had felt so much better painting. All my anxiety went out the door. I was so in the zone, in that connection to spirit when I was doing art. Whether it was good or not, it didn't matter. The fact that my arm was engaged and I was into it, and it did the trick. So I was stuck in bed with a broken foot. I couldn't stand in front of a canvas. And I always loved line art because I did it when I was a kid, and I always doodled exactly the same images, eyes and wavy lines and circles and stuff like that. So I found all these different forms of line art
Mm.
on YouTube. So I took the best class, and I can't remember what it was, NeuroArt for 7-year-olds for grade 2, right? And this lady was teaching a grade 2 class, and I took the class online, right? And then I found all these other ones. And then I got into various versions of it, like Zen Tangle. Then there was NeuroDoodle and Zen Doodle, and then Neurographica, which was very rule based. And I'm a rebel, and don't tell me you can't put glitter on things, because I will. So and so there was all these, they all had very similar things. There was about the mindful quality of working with lines and circles and shapes. But I also knew that there was a distinct relationship between when I could manifest. So I wanted to tell you how the manifestation came into the art, because it isn't just about feeling better. It's about a connection to the universe where I am no longer seeking certainty or control. And so so that's typically not what you say when you talk about manifestation. Most people come to the subject wanting certainty and wanting control, right? That's your
Mm.
initial thing is, and same with oracles. It's like, what's going on? What's going to happen? And am I going to get what I want? That's most people's motive for initial motive for learning any kind of divination system is about control and certainty.
Or learning anything really, because uncertainty and loss or lack of control doesn't feel safe.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So, of course, but now you have a lot of people peddling this in our industry, right? So,
Mhm.
here is for sure what's going to happen, all this stuff. Now, I've never been popular for that because I've never talked about it that way because I've always said, this is a daily reprieve, this is a reflective tool. You can make predictions based on your point of vantage, but you have to understand that if anything changes and something shifts, it's going to change because if you change, your point of vantage change because you change, and now all of a sudden you have more capacity, your container grows, it's different. And when I done readings professionally, I remember getting to a point. I made my reputation based on predictive accuracy. People came like, oh my god, this thing happened, this thing my friend said, boom boom boom, and I was really really good. But then I started asking questions like, well, what if this could be better? What if this wasn't it? Would you change? What would you who would you need to become to have that? This other thing. Like you because where I see you heading, like you could avoid this if you were to do this, would you do it? And so, of course, so many of the answers were yes. And I was the walking proof of changing, like personal transformation. When you're clean and sober and you do the work on yourself, you are not the same person. So therefore the goalpost changed and the capacity changed and all that changed. And why am I telling you this now? Because everybody is in this boat right now. Everybody is here. All of us have PTSD. All of us do. Let's be honest, right? Nobody has ever been in a global uncertainty that has been relentless like this, all at the same time, knowing that what's going on in the world all at the same time, and not knowing what to do with any of it. So all of us, no, I don't care who you are, right, or how much work you've done on yourself, you're being impacted by this environment, and it's an energetic environment. So what I started asking, okay, well, we can't change that. We don't want to, and I understand too. People were talking about toxic positivity, which I also understand is avoidance, right? But
Mm.
and I understand why people do that because they're scared. It's like instead of putting it all down, like what about both and? What if we could live in both and? That means our resilience needs to. We need to find protocols, etc., stuff like what you do, which is so freaking fabulous. The whole thing you do,
Thank
the
you.
Haven thing. Oh my God, it's so great. I can hardly wait till the book comes out. So there we have this need for a stretch of this and that can be true at the same time. So without saying that doesn't exist, what can we do to regulate ourselves so that we
Mhm.
can? Because here's the deal, we are always co-creating our reality. We're always manifesting it. What you
Mhm.
see, what we continue to see external to us, all is collective. That is a collective representation of what is going on for a lot of people. And when you have organized, focused people, you're going to, the universe is neutral. It's going to show you that because if you're scattered all over the place, you're not going to see. You're going to see that. You're going to have to deal with the other.
Right, because your brain goes to the negative because that's what keeps us alive and safe, or
That's
we would have
right.
been killed by a saber-toothed tiger millions of years ago thinking, "Oh,
Right?
that's a cute little cat. Let me just
Right.
hug it." Right,
Yeah.
so
And
we need that sense of safety, but we also have to know what's real and what our amygdala is telling us is real because it doesn't know time or space.
and an entire chocolate cake doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the day. Let's
Well,
not get crazy.
you know what I'm saying, right? It's like a coping mechanism. Maybe not. That's not a good idea. So,
But you bring up some really good ideas, Colette, because the thought that we tend to distract ourselves in things, we have a choice of what is a positive distraction and that which we just distract ourselves to take us out of the everyday, which sometimes isn't so positive. That's where art comes in. Yeah. I mean, even I imagine as a singer and even as a creator, is that where it can come in and really help us?
yes, but you said something very important, that we have a choice, but a lot of people don't know that they have a choice. And you know why? Because we're exhausted, therefore we are lazy, because the algorithms that we're exposed to are feeding us is in echo chambers, and all we hear is the same thing. And then we have a worldview that is so outrageously different from other people's little bubbles and whatever, that we are in different realities, like complete different realities sometimes. So we have to wake up to the choice. We have to say, okay, because a lot of people don't even realize they have any agency, because they're being taught that they're powerless, right? We are being taught we're powerless, and we should be afraid, and we should be angry, and we should be enraged, right? And if you are taught the opposite of what you see, I did an experiment. So we are absolutely not talking about politics, okay? But I decided I would see, what the two, specifically because in America, right, and in Europe too, because I lived in Europe for a few months last year. Where are the separation of media, right? Like, what are you digesting? And there are entire different narratives. So of course one is going to only listen to that because that's all they see or hear, right? So if you're not hearing what everybody is saying, you are completely convinced that what is being told to you is 1000% true. And I got to be honest with you, some of it is, but somewhere in the middle is where the truth lies. And I am very unpopular for that, of saying that, in the fact that
I say, speak your truth.
right?
Speak your
No,
truth.
because I really believe at some point we're all going to come back somewhere to the center to find out how the F we screwed this all up, because our humanity is at stake. And so people say, well, you're talking about doodling. Like, how is that going to help? Well, I'm going to tell you how it's going to help us. Right? So first of all, when we doodle in my work, we talk about being stupefied in gratitude as you go. So you imagine, and everybody, and I'd say like, oh, I've got my gratitude list. I'm like, don't put things on the list. Put an experience where you felt so grateful and in awe. Now, people who have had kids, like mothers who have had babies, the first time you look into that kid's eyes and smell them, you're stupefied in gratitude and in awe, right? So some people have never had kids. They say to me, oh, mine is when I came from a dysfunctional home and I got my first apartment and I had freedom for the first time. Me, it's when I've rescued a dog. I look into their eyes. I know they've come for me. I think I'm rescuing them. They're rescuing me. And in that moment, wow, right? So the wow, oh my God, who did that? Who's large and in charge? Not me, right? So everyone has a memory of this at least once in your life. So I say, go remember that moment, and then just rehearse the feeling, because we don't get what we want. We get what we rehearse. And if we're taught to rehearse anger, fear, panic, stress, trauma, we're going to get more of that. We're going to see more of that. We're not going to feel safe. And then the things that we do to feel safe don't work. And then there's more reasons. I don't trust myself. Oh gosh, boom, boom, boom. So then you just do this. It's so simple and so easy. And once I figured it out, it was like, oh, wait a second. If I feel like this, and I want to rehearse, then I know I have a choice. When I get stupefied in gratitude and I draw dumb little circles across a page over and over and over again, I'm going to feel like anything is possible. And I'm in the zone. So what do I really want? And who do I want to become?
I'm sitting here listening to you use the word doodle. And I grew up in a home where I had a grandmother who doodled all the time. And her artwork wound up being very similar to my brother's doodles, who is a world renowned artist. And his doodles have turned into artwork that's like blow your mind.
Ooh,
And then,
honey.
it's amazing to me that it begins with a doodle. And then when going back to what you were even saying about earlier in your life, you used to doodle on jeans, and I used to
Yeah,
do that too. And it was
right?
just, it brought me such joy to take that little, the Sharpie pen, I'm doodling, I'm giving it to my friends. I was doing it on my cutoff jeans because, Gen
Right?
Xer. And
Okay.
I adored the act of creation, even
Yeah.
if it might not be the next Picasso, but to me, it was like Picasso for the soul. And I didn't even put two and two together.
Well, right. Neither did I until I did. Right. That's the other thing. It's like, did you know that I mean, art is human. It isn't even like, it's not about art for galleries or just art for artists. Art is for humanity, and it's an essential technology for us to regulate our nervous systems and choose what we want to see in the world and rehearse it. When we are immersed in intentional art, and when I say art, like, it doesn't have to look good. It has to be done with your hand on paper, not on a computer either. Very, very different experience. When you do that, you step into this zone of creation, and all of a sudden you can have this conversation with the universe because it's always reflecting back to you. And then you can start looking for synchronicities. That's why we created this about manifesting, because it was the missing link. All those vision boards I made, all those art projects I did, because that's art. What was the missing link? And the missing link was the synchronicity piece. That everything I ever manifested came to me through synchronicities, not because it was Uber Eats.
You mentioned that in the workshop, and I love that. And I want to talk about that. By the way, folks, we're going to talk about The Art of Manifesting. This is the newest book from Colette baron-reid with Anna Denning. We're going to talk about that as well. But I took your manifesting class and we started on the zone of synchronicity. Now listen, if you're seeing this on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube and not listening on one of the podcast platforms, I started and I followed what you said, right?
Yeah.
But I followed myself as
Yeah,
well. And, this was so much fun. And this is just the beginning. I can't wait to get back to this. But can you explain briefly what the zone of synchronicity is?
Yes, I can. It's my favorite thing. Okay. All right. So every year I've taught a workshop on this. And so I always like to challenge and evolve. I'm a real innovator. Sometimes I fail. Like, I try something, it doesn't work, but I'm like, what is missing here? Like, what is it? So I just really sat down and say, like, what would I talk about this? Because it's not about getting what I want, because I didn't get what I want. Thank God. Well, I got what I wanted later on when I didn't really care. But that was the other thing. It was about the surrender piece. That's why I say be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it when you don't care anymore, and it's going to really hurt you. But maybe that's the message. But I got everything that I wanted from my career as an intuitive, like everything that was an agenda attached to that. So I'm digressing now. So I sat down a couple years ago and I said, when things come, how do they come? Seriously. Like, I looked back at my life and went, every time something happened that I had either put on a vision board that happened 20 years later, like, everything happened. Everything on my boards have happened. So I'm like, how do they come? How are they delivered? And in what form? They're always delivered through a synchronistic coincidence, right? If people don't know what synchronicity is, it's a meaningful coincidence where they land in my lap, and rarely in the exact form that I said. Except for my first husband. He looked exactly like the guy, but I was only interested in the form. So it was a way to teach me not to be attached to form, right? He looked exactly like all the guys on the thing. I forgot to say how I wanted to feel. So that was an interesting experiment of vision boards, wanting to get married, and a man. But anyway, so I tracked it and I went, so where on the board do I make space for that? Because what I learned at Unity was, this or something better now manifests for me in divine appropriate timing. You probably know this too, right? Like, that's so true. Mm-hmm. But what do I mean by that? This or something better? Well, who says what's better? Like, am I saying, give me this or give me something that's better than this? Because I'm saying inside this border is what I want, or you give me something better than that, right?
Right.
It's always
right.
inside. So
right.
Where is the part where spirit moves on that board? There wasn't any part. We were just assuming, and it was in the head. It was a head thing. I'm looking at that, universe, go get it. That kind of thing. And instead, I'm like, what if I grew it and put a big space for the universe to decide, right? That I'm going to be, because I want to be surprised. It's like, what if the thing that I want here isn't the thing at all, but I had to start somewhere. So I'm acknowledging, like, hey, this is what I think it is. This is the form I think it is. So I'm going to put it on because I have to put some type of form of the vision. But universe, you know better. You surprise me, and I'm going to be
Mhm.
really excited by seeing it, and I'm going to track the synchronicities, right? The meaningful coincidences that show me the process to get to where I wanted to go, because it's a
Yeah. Which we sometimes forget about the little things that lead us there, right? And I remember when we were doing the workshop on the art of manifesting, you had us create a bigger border around the actual piece of paper because we have to leave space for things to come in that might not be what we thought should happen, or right, we might miss it. And I'm like really taking my time thinking about this as I create it, but I'm also just being present to just not getting too much in my head and my ego. But there are things I intentionally would like to see come into my life, some of which we've spoken about. And I know they're there. I know they're in process. They're happening. I just don't know how it will happen.
right. So guess what? When you say I don't know how, you celebrate I don't know how. That's why you put the border. Hey, I don't know how, but you do. The universe.
Hmm,
So you're acknowledging that the how is not your business.
that's right.
Right? How is not my business, and form is not my business. Here's a great example. And I love telling this story because it's 1000% true. And I think the only reason it happened was for me to tell the story. When the book came out, none of my books have ever been the kind of book that would be a New York Times bestseller, because they're very personal, they're very anecdotal, they're very, whatever, and very niche. So I never ever wanted one. I never thought it'd be a thing. But this is the first time I'm like, this book could be a bestseller. But I also knew that it would be organic and it would have to take time, right? But I decided to admit it. You know what? Yeah, I would love that. And if it doesn't happen, fine. But you know what? I'm going to be honest. Yes, I would. So I decide I do a drawing and I put New York Times on the drawing. So just like New York Times with a big heart, boom, boom, boom. So then I call my head of my brand and said, guess what I just did? I was in my hot tub and I heard New York Times. I thought, yes, I want it. And I'm going to put it on my drawing. And I'm going to tell you, and we laughed. We sat and laughed, the two of us, because like, well, maybe in a couple of years it could happen, because this is a grassroots thing that it's going to
Mhm.
take time, right? And I knew that. So I said, but wouldn't it be fun? Would it be so fun? Then that means we would reach a ton of people, because that was the motive behind wanting it.
Mm.
Okay. So check this out.
Mhm.
2 hours later, Beth, as you know, Beth Grossman sends me an email. Hey, Colette, the New York Times would like to invite you to teach at their small group to their employees, right?
Love
To
it.
do the book. So it wasn't a New York Times bestseller, but I got on a plane and went to the New York Times and met them. And I told them right away, oh my God, I manifested you. So it's not a bestseller, and I don't care anymore, because the universe said, you know what? We'll give you the New York Times. You put that there, but you're going to get what you are now. You want
Right.
to
And you know
reach
what?
more
You could
people,
have gotten like a year subscription, but at
but
least you got to go to
you
the
get to go. And you know what? So maybe there's 10 people.
Yeah, but those are
Wanted
10
more
people that you
people,
touched. 10 people you touched, moved, and
right?
inspired that you didn't have before. And I love how you phrase that, because being an author is not always about, you know, selling the
Yeah.
books and making a shit ton of money. It's about sharing your
What's
voice to pay it forward and
Yes.
pass it on. And I think that's more authentic. You know, there are people who are authors that is their career, and
Yeah.
have
And they
at it.
love
More
that.
power
And
to
yeah,
you, right?
that's not me. But it
But
was,
I'm the same way. I'm like,
yeah.
if it happens and I make a crap ton of money, I feel like that money gets reinvested into helping more people
Yeah.
and reach more people. And that's my space of integrity. It sounds very similar to you. Having that and tooting your horn and saying I'm a New York Times bestseller or Wall Street
Yeah.
Journal or
Who
whatever, that's
cares?
great. But like think about how many people you have touched already,
Yeah, and I
you
love
know?
it. And I got to say this. So my partner, Anna Denning, I met her in my when I was stuck in bed, right? And she had a membership, and she taught all different types of line art, right? So I originally, because she was a neurographica instructor, and I said, hey, do you want to write a paragraph about that? Hay House offered me a book deal because I taught them all this smorgasbord of stuff that I had come up with. But then we got to be friends, and learned that we both were Reiki master. We had all these things in common, and we were both doing the same things with activating the paper and all that stuff. And I went, do you just want to come in and do this with me? Right? Come on. Like it's obvious we like manifested each other. So, and she's awesome. So awesome. And we came at this, and this is what our attitude is. We want the whole world to do this. We want there to be no rules around it. We want there to be a container the container is the 7 steps. You should do the 7 steps. But beyond that, we want people to feel like they're excited, that they're not, that it doesn't need to be perfect, that it can just be the experience of it, and that they would see that the universe is always talking to them. And that's, people forget because we're so scared all the time. We don't think anybody's listening, or, that our agency doesn't exist. And all of a sudden you start seeing these little coincidences. It's like, holy crap.
And
That just
taking
happened.
note of them is important too, and having
Yeah.
gratitude for them is
Yeah.
important too. So I want to stop for a moment and just
Sure.
say, for those that are tuning in, we are talking with Colette baron-reid about her book, The Art of Manifesting, The Zone of Synchronicity. We're going to get into this in a minute. I want you to know that this book is available. It'll be in the Holistically Speaking podcast library, the Book Nook. It'll also be in the notes of this podcast. Grab this book. It is a wonderful guide to help you. Now, I took Colette's Art of Manifesting course, and I was in the room with her, but like I forget some things. So having the book is a wonderful way to reflect back. There are pictures, there's ways to do it. There's a complete breakdown of the steps, which I want to go through briefly. And oh my gosh, my friends, like this is level up. And Colette, most people are doing their vision boards this way, right? This is my journal from last year. I put in the front page of every journal. I'm working on this year's. I know you have them too. Do these things. I mean, how many of these can you keep in storage?
Yeah.
The big vision boards.
2 of them.
But you know what, and I love visuals. I'm a very visual
Me
person.
too.
So I like seeing the words, and I like the visuals, and having the vision boards is nice. I probably will continue to do that.
Both are good.
Yes,
you
both
can
are
do
good.
one.
And that was my next question.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
is this complementing the other? Is it
Yes.
replacing the other?
Well,
Got
it can do
Yeah.
both, right? So I did not make that what you did. I love what you did. So I want to encourage people to do both. Do the one with the pictures and the words on it, etc. If that is something that you love to do, that's part of your ritual, do it. But also do a drawing so that you are reminded, right? The drawing is the soul, right? The drawing that you draw is what you don't see. It's the essence of what your desire is. It's the essence of the outcome, the essence of it, right? And also to remind you you're not separate from it, right? That the universe is always communicating with you. But it reminds you about the zone of synchronicity, which is it will come to you like crumbs going into a forest often. And sometimes it'll take you on a detour. Right. But if you are inspired, it means spirit gave it to you. So if it's an inspired vision and not something that you want because you lack it and you're trying to chase it, there's a huge difference. You know it in your body. And actually, I think with your whole hug it out thing, getting people, like there's so many ways to do it, but getting people to get into that place of openness where we're not trying to protect ourselves, right? So if we're not in defense mode, we can be open to curiosity, which is essential, right? Essential to notice. You don't notice those things when you are looking for potential threats because they're not threats. They're there to tell you, hello. Right. So, right. And then you have the reticular activating system of your brain, which is the part that's fascinating to me, where it's like the bouncer at the party where you gave it a guest list of fear, upset, because that's what you're looking at all the time. It's rehearsing. And so it goes, oh, nothing good comes in here to this party. You get away. Only the people can come in here that, the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, etc. And then I'm going to light up the runway to show you more of that out there because that's its job, to show you the evidence that what you are rehearsing is true, right? So all of a sudden you're starting to look at, oh, miracles. Wait, gratitude, more reasons to be gratitude. Oh, I like this, right? And then it's like, then you're giving it a new guest list. And it goes, oh, no, all you guys leave. Now we're going to go here. Doesn't mean that we're changing the world. I still wake up and look outside and read the news and try to read both newses just in case, because I'm like, please let me get educated on why people think this is okay. And also why, whatever, I don't care. Like I like to go broadly, look everywhere. and a little bit, not every day, because I tend to, because you realize I'm so powerless over these things, but I'm not powerless over how I live my life and what I put into that field, right? Where my contribution can be clean and integrous, and it'll evolve as long as I say, yes, that exists. I'm going to do whatever I can, whatever I'm called to, but I've got my first place has to be here. It's not going to be there, right? I need to be the change, right? Somebody said that. That's famous, right?
Be the
Gandhi.
change, right?
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much goodness in all this. And I want to just say that if you are touched, moved, and inspired by this conversation, and you are going to grab a pen or your colored markers or your pencils and give it a shot. I want to hear from you. Let's talk about it. Let me know how it's going for you. Pay this forward, share it with another person, leave a rating, a review. I mean, this conversation is a great way to not only kick off the new year, because we're moving into the earlier part of the year. People start wondering if their intentions and goals are manifesting. Most people's intentions and goals, they drop them off because they don't see things happening. So how can this be that thing? How can this be that project that can kind of
I know.
be the rocket fuel? Hey, Colette, do
Hey,
you have
hey.
the answer?
Okay, so when you look at the zone of synchronicity and you recognize by drawing that you have surrendered to timing and form, right? And you can get excited because you're going to get a surprise. When it's a surprise, it wouldn't be a surprise if you tell it by noon on such and such a time this has to happen, right, in the form exact. So you have to say, oh, this is interesting, I wonder what's going to happen next. So right, I put on my boards, I put surprise me, wow.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Right, like surprise me, wow, I want to be surprised. So if I'm being surprised, then how could I think something is off, not happening? Right, like if it's, yeah, sometimes I might get a little frustrated because I'm human, but then if I look at my board, I'm like, oh, spirit knows. And if it's a hard no, I'm okay with that too, because that means, I always say, show me a billboard, I don't want to guess. And
Right. Like, oh, I think I just saw 1111. I think I just saw that. And there's no right or wrong, but for you, that's what you need.
yeah, I need
Yeah.
no,
Love
that's
that.
for me. I want a
Right.
billboard if it's not for me.
Mm.
I don't need the
Mm.
billboard if it is for me, because I know I will know. But if it's not for me, I always say, take it, show me really quickly so I don't waste our time.
Great. Great. So listen, I want to be really mindful of your time, but can we go through
Yes.
quickly the 7 steps of manifesting? I
Yeah,
could talk to you for
I
hours. We're
know,
going to
me
have
too.
more
I'm like,
conversations,
we're
but
making friends, just so y'all know.
we
We're gonna
yeah, like we're besties. I'm heading up to Toronto at some point. Within the art of manifesting, you mentioned there are 7 steps. Can
right.
you briefly just explain what they are?
Yes, and I'll give you the ones that are the most important. So
Mhm.
we always start by activating our paper. So you'll notice in there we talk about rubbing your hands together. I'll do it really quickly, and getting a sense of energy between the hands, which is a qigong move as well as Reiki, etc. And then you place your hands above the paper, and what you do, each step is a ritual. So it's a sacred threshold moment, right, where you're going, okay, no longer is this just a normal piece of paper. You always activate your paper so that the paper is now a representation of the field of potential, right? So it's not just a drawing anymore, it's something sacred, right? So we've now created a sacred space. Then you put a dot. So when you put the dot on the paper, yes, your dot, and then you stare at the dot, did you not see some wild stuff on that?
Oh, it was trippy. It was and I did the whole, and I'm a hand, and I felt the energy, and
Right?
we were all in alignment, and it was
Right? It was wild, right?
kumbaya.
And you're training your brain to
Yeah.
recognize something that is not, you go from ordinary reality to
Right.
non-ordinary reality, right?
The
So
dot.
that's right, the dot. There you go. Then from there, so the dot represents a concentration of your intention, right? So you set your intention prior to, and that represents that. And you're just saying, here, this little black hole is where the intention is, and then you put something to represent your relationship to the field or to the conscious universe. You can say to God. I don't care what you
Mhm.
believe, a higher power. I mean, it's like, We're always in a broadcast and receiving. So your brain, we know the science has now proven, post-materialist science, that we receive information. It's not generated by our brain. Our brain is like a
Mhm.
radio transmitter. So we broadcast that whatever it is that we rehearse, we broadcast. So we put these weird wavy lines, and you just let your hand go wherever it wants. And those are called frequency lines. So that's a representation of the conversation that you have with the universe. Like, hey, universe, see this intention? I'm now going to send this to you, and I'm going to show this on the paper. So there we see it. And then it answers us, because it always answers us. We are always in a dynamic relationship with the universe. It's always reflective. So it comes as a mirror. So then then we trace a line back. So let's say we have a few lines. And then, so now you're like, you've got you're saying, oh, look, then you put a portal. So what this represents, the portal is a door, right? So a door, in this case, I think you did the square. I'm not sure what you did. But
I did
so
a circle. I
you did
kind
the
of
circle.
followed you.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we
I
did
did.
circle or square. So you say, it doesn't really matter. In the book, it says, and the reason you do that is when you look at that, you can really say to yourself, what side of this am I on? So if I'm on this side of the door, it means I am really acknowledging that I am limited in my capacity to perceive, and my perspective is skewed, because the human being is limited by the way that they sense reality, right? But if I step through the door or step through the circle, now I'm in this zone. We all know what a threshold moment is. We mark, like doorways, right? When you enter a house, when you see at the temple doors, they're always beautifully, designed and whatever. So you step through that, and then you create gratitude bubbles.
And I haven't, we're going to show them in the book. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm actually holding up the page 19 of Art of Manifesting, which shows the
Yes.
steps. This is so beautiful. So if you missed Colette's workshop, which you do a number of these, which is great, you learn so much by watching you and like doing it along with you. But this book is so well put together and really shows you the steps with ease, because like for those people who are not artists, they might get caught up in
Yeah.
that belief system of, I draw stick figures, which somebody actually asked the question. They said, ask Colette. Somebody submitted a question, said, what happens if I just draw stick figures? It's
Go
like,
ahead.
then draw stick figures,
Yeah. I don't
right?
care.
It's
Like,
lines and circles.
lines, yeah, go ahead. Like,
Right.
yeah, go
No
ahead, and that'll
rules.
be perfect. Like, the
Yeah.
idea is you do what you feel. Like, the idea too, if you put stick figures in it, you put stick figures in it, because they mean something to you.
Right.
So, I always doodled eyes. So I always have eyes all over my
I did that
drawings.
too.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you shared that. And then I did kind of one of my logos, which is a circle with the lines coming out, radiating rays of
Wow.
sunshine. So I'm gonna do another one too. I'm not even done with this first one, and I just have loved the process of just creating. So you have the 7 steps you mentioned briefly: waking your hands, the rubbing together, creating an energy ball, activating the paper. Do you need to activate the paper every time you go back to it?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no. If you're
no?
going back, no. Like, for example, I have a drawing that I'm working on right now based on my parents, right?
Beautiful.
So yeah, so it
Yeah.
starts there. And no, I only do it the one time, and then I can go back to it because it's already activated, right?
Yeah.
The paper's already activated. It's already something it's a sacred space for me to work stuff out, but I originally created the dot, the thing, the whole thing. And
Mm,
I have, now
okay.
I will put the portal after in this one.
Ah, okay. And then you make your dot for intention, you call in the light, you open the portal, and you step through the portal. So, like, envision yourself stepping into this space of
Yeah.
possibility, this space, this zone of synchronicity, and just saying, here I am, world.
Yeah.
Here I am, world. Oh, this is so beautiful. And it explains it even better. And I think people, in many ways, are probably already doing this in their lives if they're
Yeah.
doodling. You can just set an intention with it and see
Yes.
what can happen. So
Yep.
beautiful. Again, the book is The Art of Manifesting, Colette Baron-Reid with Anna Denning. Can we give a shout out to Anna? Is
Yeah.
Anna actually an artist by trade?
She's a teacher, art teacher, and she is an
Okay.
artist. Yeah, she's an artist, a
Yes.
teacher. She has the School of NeuroArts. She is. I met her because I belong to her membership, right? And she's brilliant, and she teaches all different types. And yeah, so she's wonderful. She lives in the UK. And we do lots of
Amazing.
stuff together online, and we're having a big
Yeah.
event. I think it's March 7th, a full day of doing this, the Art of Manifesting Day. And then we're
Great.
training teachers. We're doing teacher training so people can learn how to teach, because there's a lot behind each step that's
Yeah.
not in the book.
Love that. We're going to share everything in the notes of the podcast, including how to grab the book, even something that Beth shared with me to pass along, and that is the resources that you have to pick a card. Oh my gosh, pick an Oracle card with Colette. Sign me up. That's going to be in the notes of the podcast as well. So much we can go on and talk about for hours here, and I know we're going to have more conversations. I do have one other person that actually submitted a question. They said, can you use this to manifest healing for your body?
You know, I was having trouble eating too much over Christmas, and I actually did a drawing on, letting go the need to protect myself with my weight, right? So I go up and down with my weight, and it really worked. I was just able to really, I just surrendered, So can it? Try it. One thing that it will do is it'll bring down your stress levels. That I know it does. That I can say 100% that it will do that. Beyond that, I don't know.
And I think all of these things are complements to what we
Yeah.
already have on our lives, whether it's complementary alternative medicine, like what I do, whether it's manifesting, whether it's drawing, whether it's going out and
Yeah.
taking a walk. Everything you do that is in alignment with having and living a positive life, an optimal life, cannot harm you.
Right.
It can only complement
Yeah.
you. So to that, I think, wouldn't it be fun to try and create a drawing
Yeah.
around healing for your body, right? Just
Yep.
try it. That's what we're going to say. All right. So listen, I want to play a game with you. This is something
Oh,
I do with all of
fun.
my guests. And what I do is I write down a word. This is called the brain candy game. It's a word association game. I write down a word that you have said, and you come back to me with the first word that comes to mind. Are you ready for some brain candy?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Trauma.
Chocolate.
Oh, you know what? Why not? This game is going to be good. If only that solves all the trauma in our lives. All right, trauma, chocolate, doodling,
Freedom.
synchronicity,
Liberation.
PTSD,
Still have it.
sober,
Always.
NeuroArt,
Exciting.
gratitude,
Now.
stupefy. Love that word.
Gratitude.
Yeah. And manifesting.
Partnership.
Ooh, do tell.
Partnership with the universe. Manifesting is not a thing you do. It's not done by self-will. It's done in partnership with a conscious universe that we don't 100% understand, but it's a partnership.
Yeah, it's a collaboration, an alliance. My word of the year is alliance.
Oh, is it?
And I chose that for many reasons, not just alliances with other people, which is fabulous, but alliances with myself, alliances with a source outside of me, And I love that because it really is, that's what manifesting is. It's putting my trust, like, this is on its way, this or something better.
My word is wonder for this year.
Yes,
When
I
you
remember
said-
you saying that.
When you said PTSD, it's funny because I just felt my whole chest go, and it's there. You know what I mean? It just exists. So I didn't know what the one word would be to that, but it just felt like it's there. But it's not impossible. You know what I mean? PTSD is,
Yeah. It's coming back with the word that before your ego sets in.
well, that was funny. So the word before the ego sets in would have been journey.
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 I think I'm curious about chocolate with trauma.
Well, the first thing that I think of when I'm like, oh, is there chocolate? Right?
Yeah, that's like feeding your soul in a way. It's a feel good. Why not chocolate? As long as it's good chocolate. Why not chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
It should always be chocolate.
Dark chocolate from Montreal is the best, which has a very low sugar
Oh.
content.
Has a very low sugar
Low
content.
sugar content, yeah.
What's interesting is I'm one of those people that really likes high percentage cacao, like 95%.
me
Like
too.
it's almost baker's chocolate. And
Yeah, and you can't overdo it.
no,
But
and
it's
it's
funny
like
that I said that I have felt too that the conversation around trauma has been so co-opted,
Mm.
by social media, et cetera. Now trauma it's just too ubiquitous, right?
It's a
Everybody has
buzzword.
the buzzword, right? And same, a lot of words have become buzzwords.
Yeah.
So it was kind of almost like my little rebelliousness going like, enough already. Have a piece of chocolate, which
Yeah.
is so wrong, right?
And it's real. I mean, but that's the thing, you bring up a really good point because I'm a trauma-informed practitioner.
Yeah.
When this podcast first started, it's traumas to triumphs through health, healing, and humor. I think trauma is real, but I think we have watered the word down
Yes.
to where everyone's using it, and understanding what it means can help you on your healing journey.
Absolutely. I train
So,
coaches. We have the certified intuitive coach program, which is a trauma
mm,
informed program, and we talk, but we also say it's like really important that you come in there understanding that this could be going on. I had to do my own trauma work. We have to be responsible for that. You are not responsible for my triggers, right? It's like you're not, right? Because then nobody heals, right? It's like it's still this thing. It's your fault. I'm like this. No, it isn't. I'm like this because I have this thing in me that needs healing. And right, and then when the trigger comes, it's an invitation to soften and
mm.
to heal and to go do something. So yeah. So I have a little bit of a, when we say that, I want to, yeah, I just feel like it's so important. Do the healing, do the
Do the
work, do the
work.
work. I hate
Do the
that too.
work.
That's also been
I
co-opted. Yeah,
know, but it
I
but
don't
it
like it.
but it's important.
It is
Do
important.
do the research, take the
Yeah, take
challenge,
the challenge
grow. Maybe it's just grow. That could be the word. We're always
and
growing
and
and
love
students of
yourself
life.
through it
Mm,
too, right? And like
yeah.
you said, what I love about you is the humor part. Like I have every reason to be traumatized. I was gang raped when I was 19. I mean, I can give you a list of stuff that have happened to me that will would say, "Wow, has she ever had a lot of trauma?" I live an amazing life. I do the work. I go to therapy. I've done the things. I was like, I don't want to be like this. So you're not the cause of that. If I get triggered, it's like, okay, what came up for me? I know the right questions to ask instead of being mad or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like you really have to be willing to do the healing and not expect other people to step around you either. Like the way we walk around each other like on eggshells now isn't helping
No.
either.
And it's not, you don't have to be understood, and you don't
No,
need others to understand you either.
no.
It's your work. And it's something I'll share with clients and even friends and family, and even something I had to take note of, that your parents have a responsibility until the age of 18, maybe a few years after that, as you're
Yeah.
getting your, learning to fly. But at some point, you have to be an adult and say,
Yeah.
this is my responsibility
Yeah.
to heal. Sometime at some point, you can't keep blaming others and think that if it doesn't change, it doesn't change. If you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. So where are you in your process that you're willing to say, enough already? I'm taking my control back. I'm not giving my trauma or my upsets
Yeah.
or my bad childhood or my bad situations. I'm not giving that power away anymore. The power, the control is taking back the ownership of
That's
it, knowing
right.
that you can heal,
That's right.
you
And
know?
sometimes you need to take an ice pick. Like
Yeah.
I went and saw this film called Sentimental Value, right? Sentimental Value. And I watched it and it hit me. I need to take that ice pick because I have some stories around my parents. They're unnecessary now. They're old stories that are just packed
Mm,
in like to dirt at the root. And I'm like, no, I need to take that ice pick and go in there and let them go, right? They're not
mhm.
necessary anymore. I was watching that going like, wow, the
We hold
healing.
on to those stories because
Yeah.
they feel safe. Safe in certainty of what we know doesn't necessarily
Me,
mean it's good for us,
yeah.
right? And I use this analogy a lot. We're walking on a path. You have a fork in the road. This fork to the left might say, waterfalls, and it's gorgeous ahead, and go down that path, and you might see that there are a lot of people that walked on this path, but it also says falling rocks.
Right.
And then this other path over here, it doesn't look like many people walked on it, but you see rainbows and there's mermaids in the distance. You're more likely to take the falling rock
Yeah.
path
Cause
than
you
the
know it.
one that's right, because this is uncertain, even though uncertain is it's not safe. I mean, it's like staying in a domestic violent relationship. You know it.
Yes.
Why would you leave it?
So true.
But
we could talk
we
for hours.
can go on for hours about this, but we really could. This is a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, no,
So I want to be mindful, and I want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to leave with those tuning into Holistically Speaking? How would you like them to walk away with a Colette takeaway?
I want you to have hope. Hope that is, there's this idea of the concept of optimism that is not attached to any one specific thing, but to know that there is a universe that hears you. And if you can just allow yourself to relax into trusting that relationship and that dynamic, anything becomes possible for you. So that means we can change the world, but it has to be one person at a time and one small world at a time. And what you are matters. What you experience matters, and what you desire matters. Your dreams matter.
Ooh, I felt that. I felt like you were talking right to me. Thank you. Thank you for that. I imagine many people are going to be extremely moved by this conversation. And I cannot wait to chat more with you in the future. And for those that have been here the whole time tuning in, do know that the Art of Manifesting will be in the podcast notes. Also, the free card reading from Colette. I'm going to put a link to that. Everything about Colette. Get those pens and paper out and start your zone of synchronicity and drawing and just this beautiful meditative practice that actually will rewire your brain and create your reality. You are a joy. Thank you so much for being here. I adore you, and I look forward to creation.
Thank you.
Grab your pens, grab your pencils, grab your paper. If you are ready to embrace the art of manifesting, this is the time. I put all the information in the notes of this podcast to get in touch with Colette, to learn about the zone of synchronicity, the 7 steps, what it means to truly draw your destiny into being. The time is now. When is now the right time is the big question. The answer to that is in the question. Start living your dreams today. All the stuff you need is in the notes of this podcast, including a free reading of her oracle cards. I have a link in there as well. And if you want to take things deeper, if you want to go even further, if you are truly connected to how neuroscience can change the brain, which the Art of Manifesting can also do that, I want you to join me at an upcoming Havening event. I do them online. You have the Havening Happy Hours, which is a wonderful community to embrace. I guide you through the Havening experience. You can also join me for an intro to Havening to go deeper into the history and the neuroscience and how it can work for you in the work that you do. Or go ahead, sign up for a certification and a training and become a certified Havening techniques practitioner. I am here to support you. I am here to guide you. And I am so glad you're here right now, tuning in to this episode. And all I have to say to that is you have the ability to create the life of your dreams. You're doing it right now just by tuning into this podcast. So take a step back, take a deep breath, go grab some paper, get some pens and pencils, grab this book, be present, and draw your destiny. I love you. I believe in you. I am so grateful to have you here, and thank you for tuning in week after week. Thank you to my dear friend Lipbone Redding for providing the music. And I know that good things are coming your way. Be well.